Timothy O'Brien was born on the 5th of April 1966. He lived in Deer Park, Harris County, Texas, living with his mum, Dainine, his father Ronald, and his sister Elizabeth. It was on the night of Halloween, 31st of October 1974. 8-year-old Timothy and his 5-year-old sister Elizabeth were getting ready for a night of trick-or-treating. They were to be joined by another friend and his father, Jim Bates. It was a dark evening when they went out to trick-or-treat. Ronald was still wearing his white coat that he wore to work at the optician's. Together, the two parents and the kids set off, knocking on different doors and going to different houses, collecting candy. They came upon a house with no lights on. Still, the children wanted to try their luck, but when there was no answer, they decided to walk off and go somewhere else, with Jim following them. After a short while, Ronald caught up with them and handed them all pixie sticks each, including a 10-year-old boy that they recognised from church, saying that there had been someone at the house after all. Timothy and his sister came home with their father Ronald, and they were both allowed to have a treat before bedtime, and Timothy chose the pixie sticks. With a bit of a struggle to open the pixie sticks, Timothy finally took his first mouthful of the powdered candy. He immediately complained about the bitter taste, in which Ronald quickly got some Kool-Aid to help wash it down. Minutes later, Timothy was violently sick and became very ill, and within the hour, Timothy had passed away. Although he was rushed to hospital, it was just too late. A former county prosecutor, Mike Hinton, just so happened to be working on police intake that night when he got a phone call from the Pasadena Police Department. They told him of the 8-year-old boy that had just died. He sprung into action and contacted Dr. Jakimzik, the chief medical examiner for Harris County, asking what the boy's breath smelled like. After a call to the morgue, they confirmed the smell of almonds was coming from Timothy's mouth, and Dr. Jakimzik knew it was cyanide. In the autopsy report, it showed that Timothy had enough cyanide in his body to kill 2 people, and after later tests of the actual pixie sticks, it was confirmed that the 2 inches of cyanide had been packed into the top part of the pixie sticks. In the autopsy report, it showed that Timothy had enough cyanide in his body to kill 2 people. And after later tests of the actual pixie sticks itself, it was confirmed that the first 2 inches of pixie sticks, cyanide had been packed into the top. There was a rush to collect the other pixie sticks that had been handed out, desperately hoping that nobody else had consumed the poison. Police now needed Ronald to tell them where he had got the candy from, but for some reason he couldn't remember the house or even the neighbourhood that he collected them from. He told police that he didn't even see the face of the person that handed them to him, that he just saw a dark figure's hand. At this point, Ronald became very suspicious to the police. After a couple of frustrating days, police got pretty tough on Ronald to try and get him to remember the house and the neighbourhood. In the end, he managed to point out the house that he had gone to, that had allegedly given the pixie sticks. Police immediately called the house and then found the homeowner at his place of work, which was at William P. Hobby Airport in Houston. Initially, he had been arrested in front of all of his colleagues, but it very quickly came to light that he had an alibi for the Halloween night, and he was working until 11, and his colleagues could prove it, which would explain why all the lights were off at the time when the kids had knocked on the door. Suspicions of Ronald only got stronger when the police learned of Ronald's financial troubles and was in major debt and owed over $100,000. Also, that he had taken out life insurance on his children, $10,000 per child in January of 1974, and then in the month before Halloween, he took out a further $20,000 per child. What was really shocking was the fact in the morning after Timothy had died, Ronald had contacted his insurers the moment they opened at 9 a.m. to see where he stood on getting his son's life insurance. More and more red flags kept coming up where Ronald was concerned. First of all, the college that he attended asked a professor what was more lethal, cyanide or another type of poison. Another witness, who at the time couldn't identify Ronald, said that a man had come into his store asking to buy cyanide. When he found out he could only buy a minimum of £5, the man left. The witness described the guy as wearing a beige or blue smock type jacket, which is what O'Brien wore to work. However, even though with all the witnesses' testimonies and suspicious activity, it still meant that the pixie sticks couldn't be proven to have come from Ronald himself. After all, DNA testing and debit card transactions didn't exist. It was of common belief that the reason why other children had received pixie sticks was to take the heat off Ronald himself, as to not make it obvious that he only wanted his own children dead. Therefore, by giving other children these pixie sticks, the motive, which was financial, would be less obvious. Ronald entered a not guilty plea and still blamed some random weirdo who wanted to harm children that conveniently couldn't be traced. By now, the press had coined the name Candyman, and it all came to a conclusion on the 3rd of June 1975, along with all the friends and family and co-workers who had testified against Ronald. The jury had taken only 46 minutes to find him guilty of one charge of capital murder. An hour later, it was decided that Ronald O'Brien would get the electric chair. Ronald would later appeal the verdict, but it was turned down. Finally, on March 31st, 1984, he was finally executed, but it ended up being by lethal injection and not electric chair. Thank you for watching. I will be posting weekly content, so if you like what you see and you want more, please like and subscribe and turn on your notification button.